All right, this is the second part of the Right Triangle Trig series here from Lesson 9.5 and Reveal. And we want to make sure that our calculators can handle what we're doing today. And so you need to do cosine 60. Do this cosine 60 in your calculator, and you should get 0.5. If you get something else, your calculator is in the wrong mode, and you need to figure out how to switch it from radians to degree. On a graphing calculator, there's a mode button where you can go find how to switch it from radian to degree. Some calculators have a button with DEG, which changes it. If you're using an iPhone, it's in like the bottom left-hand corner changes the degree. But you want to get 0.5 when you do cosine 60. And so we're reviewing, we're still using the same thing we've been using from the first part of the section, SOHCAHTOA. And so let's talk again about how we know which one we're using and when we can use SO, when we can use CA, when we can use TOA. And so for each of these examples, the angle we're talking about is in the bottom right-hand corner. So that's the angle they gave us. That's the angle we're working with. Okay. And in each of these examples, the hypotenuse is opposite of the 90. So the hypotenuse is here, opposite of the 90. The hypotenuse is here, opposite of the 90. And the hypotenuse is here, opposite of the 90. And so hypotenuse is probably the easiest to identify. And then after that, I prefer to identify opposite next. And so this is the 50-degree angle. All the way across opposite of it is the x here. And so this over here is the opposite. Over here, this is the opposite. And then here, opposite. And so the remaining side that's right next to the angle, but not the hypotenuse, is the adjacent. Now, on the first one, I've got to solve for x. So there's an O where the x is. So I got to use O. And it's a math problem, so I need to use numbers. So I use H. OH means so. Or I could also say I'm not using the A. So OH is so. Here I'm not using the O. AH is ka. And here I'm not using the H. OA is toa. And so for the first one, I want to use so. S stands for sine, always of the angle. So sine of 50 equals x over 14. I'm going to put the sine of 50 over 1 and cross multiply. I get x equals, all right? I take my calculator. I type in 14 times sine of 50. And I get 10.72. This one is A and H, so it's cosine of the angle, which is 40, is A over H. So A is 5 over H is X. Here when I cross multiply, I get X times cosine 40 equals 5. So I have to do one more step where I divide by cosine 40. So it's 5 divided by cosine 40. 5 divided by cosine 40 is 6.527 or 6.53. Right? And so the last one, using O and A as tangent. Go ahead and give this one a try. Tangent of the angle equals opposite over adjacent. What do you get for x? And it's 4.00, so I can just round it to 4. You know, it keeps going, but we can just round it to 4. That's good enough for us. And so hopefully you remember that stuff. So today is all about inverses, inverse trig ratios. When do I use our inverses? I use inverses anytime it's the angle I'm trying to find. So the 3 examples we just did, we're all finding a missing side. If I'm trying to find a missing angle, then I use an inverse. And the inverse buttons on the calculator are going to look like they have little negative ones beside them. So sine with a little negative one is inverse sine. All right. Cosine with a little negative one is inverse cosine. Tan with a little negative one is inverse tangent. And so those little negative ones mean inverse. We'll talk about how to find them on your calculator as we go through the problems. But you're trying to find angle measures. You use these. You need to put into your notes, know that inverses go with finding missing angles. So it says use a calculator to find the measure of angle Z. And so this angle down here is Z. That's what I'm trying to find. Now I'm going to label the sides. This opposite of the 90 is the hypotenuse. Opposite of the angle, so this is the angle here. All the way opposite of it is the opposite, which makes this the adjacent. Well, I'm using the numbers in a math problem, so I'm not using the adjacent. So OH. OH, so the first thing I still have to know is that I'm using so. That hasn't changed. And so sine of Z, let me rewrite that. Sorry about that. So sine of Z equals opposite over hypotenuse. So the setup is exactly like it was. This should say Z here. Now, to solve for Z, to get rid of the sine, I have to do the inverse. And so now it's all about learning how to use your calculator. If you have a graphing calculator, type it in just like it looks. It'll be simple, all right? If your calculator is one where you hit sine or cosine before you type 60 at the beginning, then type it in like it looks. If your calculator is like the iPhone, you got to do the division first. So take your calculator, 15 divided by 25 equals, and your calculator will tell you 0.6. All right? And so you have to do 15 divided by 25 first and hit equals. Then hit second, which is on the far left side of my iPhone. All right, if you're using the iPhone calculator, and then sine button changes to sine inverse. It equals. Now my screen tells me 36.869897, yada, yada, yada. I need to round that to the nearest tenth, and so I'm just going to say 36.9 degrees. Right. Find the measure of a missing angle. Missing angle here is A. This is the hypotenuse. This is the adjacent, and so it's a problem. Cosine A equals adjacent over hypotenuse. To find the angle or to get rid of the cosine, I have to do the inverse. All right, and so take your calculator, do 3 divided by 15 equals, and then do second cosine. Right? Or if you have the calculator, you can type it all in, just type it all in. Right? And so my screen says 78.46304. Rounding to the nearest tenth is going to be 78.5 degrees. Last kind of problem you're going to have here is find the missing measures. And so you got to find everything that's missing. Right? And so angle R, I don't know the measure of. Angle T, I don't know the measure of. But also I'm going to put a little X right here. I don't know that missing side. So there's 3 things that are missing. There's 3 things they gave me. They gave me 90 degrees. that gave me 9, that gave me 6. Right? So they could give you 2 angles or 1 angle and 90, so 2 angles. Right? Triangle ends up to 180 would make that easy. Right? They could give you, then they'd only maybe give you one side. So you got to figure out all the parts that are missing from the right triangle. Right? And so I need to find out one of the angles first. And so I'm going to find angle R. Right? Angle R, if I use my thing here, this is my H, and compared to R, this is the opposite. And so I'm going to do sine of R equals opposite over hypotenuse. So, right? Again, now I'm going to have to do R equals inverse sine of 6 divided by 9, and then use your calculator. Right? R equals, I'm going to use my calculator, inverse sine it, I get 41.8. Now for t, I know the whole triangle adds up to 180, so I can do 90 plus 41.8 plus t equals 180. Right? I add up 90 plus 41.8, and I get 131.8. And I subtract that from 180, and I get 48.2. And then for RS, now could I use SOHCAHTOA for RS? Absolutely I could. I would just have to use either one of these. But if I have 2 sides already, then the easiest way to find a missing side is to go back and do a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And so that's 36. 9 squared is 81. I subtract over. And then I square root both sides. And so I'm just going to say x equals the square root of 45. Or if you did that as a decimal, that would be fine as well. 45, let me hit square root on my calculator real quick, and it's 6.7. So I would take either square root of 45 or 6.7 would be fully acceptable there. That's the homework in my class. Wish you well. Good luck.